everyone. We'll wait a minute more for more people to come and then we'll start. All right. We shall start. So I'll just brief you what we do over here. I'm Jobin Varughese, and this is a doubt clearing session for NPTEL for the course Basic Course in Ornithology. And basically, how I'm going to do this session in the next 2 hours is present you with multiple choice.
Jobin, in case you're speaking to us, your mic is on mute.
Sorry again. So yeah. So what I was saying was, which got muted till now. So what I was saying was, this is a doubt clearing session, week 6, and for basic course in ornithology. And I'm Jobin Varughese, and this is a part of NPTEL, also PMRF, the fellowship together. And what I'm going to do for the next 2 hours is present you with questions, and it'll have multiple choices, and you might have to answer in the chat box, and then probably we can discuss a little bit over after the question is answered. So I'll start immediately. Yeah, here's your first question, and this is based on Suhel's session and Suresh's session. All right. Most of you have answered C. I have like 10 people over here, and I've just got like 5 answers. I mean, others can guess an answer. It's not like anything anyone would say. All right, I'll just go ahead with the answers. So it is C stratified sampling, and yeah, I mean, I have a question. I have a question on this. Like, how is stratified and random sampling different in sense? Why would you? I mean, if you are randomly selecting points, and it'll fall in the strata anyways, and the area of this. I mean, if the if the probability of the points. Survey points falling in that in those particular strata is anyways proportional to the area of the strata, then why do we even do stratified sampling? It's a question for you guys. I want, like,
Sir, could you repeat it, please? I didn't.
okay, so we are doing random sampling. We are throwing points randomly onto our region of study, onto the survey region, and it is in the land covers, different types of land covers. Um, so the probability of those points falling on the land cover is proportional to the area that land cover contains. So say for example, the land cover has the area 20%, 30%, and 50%. So the and I throw like over 100 points onto that entire region. So what I'll mostly get is 20 plots in the first, 30 plots in the second, and 50 plots in the third, based on the proportion of the area that the entire region, I mean the land covers cover on the entire sampling area, the entire area. So why even do stratified? I mean, you could just be done with random sampling. Why do stratified? So
Because
Rusbe,
stratified is going to be closer to the truth because you can average it out and then arrive closer to the actual figure. If you're doing random sampling, it all depends on where you're taking those measurements from. So supposing you're
no, random sampling is also random. I mean, we are not talking about haphazard convenience sampling. We are actually doing random sampling. We are gridding the entire system, and so there's a random number generator. The same thing is being done. I mean, we are selecting the sites based on the random number generator. So it is randomly allocated. I mean, random over here is a technical term. I'm not using that. I'm not saying random as in. So that what you are trying to say is haphazard or convenience sampling, where you're just walking and whatever site you feel is. You get my point,
right.
right? So when we do random, we are we are grid. I mean, what people generally do is, on what I have also done in my studies, is grid the entire system, number generator picks the grid randomly. Say suppose I say I have to pick 100 grid cells out of it, so it'll pick 100 grid cells, and that is random sampling. And within the three land cover, they're anyways falling proportional to the area. So why even do stratified? What's the big deal about it? Like, stratified is basically you divide the area into three sections, and I mean three, not three, but based on whatever strata you want to divide that into, and then again use a random number generator and throw. Yes, Govind, please go.
Sir, with relation to your question, why do stratified sampling? Is it to tell the difference between two data? Like for example, we get results, and we can tell the difference between if it's uh, from which data it comes from, right, sir?
that
Get
I
the
can that I can still do even when in random sampling, right? I have all the samples. I have the land cover map with me. I can still say, okay, points 1 to 20 are in land cover A, points 21 to 30, whatever, 50 are in land cover B. I can still say that. What's the big deal? Sorry, it's stratified. The spelling is right. Okay, stratified. I mean, there's an answer that it's not that you haven't heard of it, because if you have gone through the lecture, Suhel has answered like very briefly on this, um, like why do stratified, like a very brief, yeah. Anyone else wants? Harini is probably random could mean that you may end up with one type, also by chance. It's a big area, Harini. I mean, it's a big area, and I have a huge number of plots. Like I said, it's 1,000 hectares. 20% is land cover A, 30% land cover B, 50% land cover C, and I have like some 1,000 plots that I'm putting into it. That would mean that 200 plots, roughly 200 plots would go in land cover A, 300 in land cover B, and 500 in land cover C. By chance, yes, I understand, but still, I mean, if you do the with the stratified or the random, it'll have very similar kinds of numbers. Like it would be like 211 or 12, but not, yeah, but that's not gonna make a big difference. Okay, so I will just say so suppose
Just one thing,
yeah.
you can't make inferences to those subgroups that you divided them,
Why
right?
can't I?
Supposing, because each subgroup can have its unique qualities.
Yeah.
So with stratified sampling, you can make inferences that are specific to the strata or the subgroup that you divided it.
But I mean, I think you're making the same point that Govind already made, and I have the same reply that I have the land cover map. I can still figure out like this, like point 1 to 20 or 200 are from land cover A, and that's why I'll analyze this separately with the kind of whatever unique characteristic that like land cover A has. So still, it represents, okay. Harini, yeah. Anyways, everyone's coming. I mean, even I wasn't aware till very recently, but okay. So suppose, for example, let's take an example of what the land covers are. So suppose there are only two land covers. One is a grassland and one is a dense forest. All right, and we are doing stratified sampling, and we are looking at birds in grassland and birds in dense forest. Would there be a difference in how? Yeah. So basically, the idea is we keep sampling in both these strata till we get. You guys must know the species area curve by now, right? You keep sampling till the species area curve flattens, and that's when you know that you have sampled almost all the species, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then, where do you think you might have to sample more?
Grasslands.
Grasslands. Really, Lakshmi? Why? Why do you say that?
I would rather say where the area where it meets, the grassland meets the forest area.
No,
That,
there are only two strata. There are only two.
Overlapping areas. These
No,
two
two
land
land
covers.
two land covers are there, and we are not even sampling in overlapping areas. No sampling over there. No sampling on the edges.
It would obviously be the denser areas, since
Why?
it's much difficult to identify species in dense areas, sir. Fine.
Okay. Yeah, you have a point over there. So what are you saying then? Should we sample? I mean, should there be proportional sampling in both grasslands and forest, or like proportional to the area of the coverage, area of the, I mean, the area that is covered by these different land covers, or should there be a different method to be applied over there?
Sir, there are many factors, sir. For example, in a dense area, multiple species can hug, stay closer together. But whereas in the grassland, it's more spread out. That's also a factor we need to take into account.
Okay.
There are multiple strata in the forest area. So, like each bird has its own niche, and while covering, we have to make an extra sure that we cover all the niches, like undergrowth, middle part, canopy, like that.
So
But it's very
basically, what I understand from Govind's and Lakshmi's point is you have to put more efforts in the forest area than you have to put in the grassland
yes,
area.
sir. Yes, sir.
Are we clear on this?
Yes,
Right?
sir.
So when it comes to efforts, we could also mean the number of plots that we sample in both the grassland and the forest area, right? Like
Yes, sir.
But
efforts.
sir, the
And even in the plots,
sampling.
there is an issue, sir. Like if it is very dense forest, there are some regions where you can't get to it. Like you can't,
Yeah. Okay.
inaccessible.
Okay. They are all
But when
accessible.
it comes to
Yeah.
sampling in grasslands, I think the area covered should be a bit wider. As in grasslands, bird populations might be a bit more dispersed. They might be a bit wider.
Okay, let's for example assume that both the grasslands and the forest birds, all the species, have very similar home ranges or territories or whatever you want to call them. But still, are we agreeing on the point that grasslands would require a little less effort than what the forest, much less effort than what the forest sampling requires? And
I would say it's more different kinds of efforts, sir.
but still efforts. I mean, different kinds in what way? What are you gonna do in forest and what are you gonna do in grassland?
I think the number of samples should be greater in forests, whereas the area covered in grasslands should be wider, sir.
Mm, you make a point, but how do you then compare both the grassland and the forest? Like you have to be. I mean, they both have to be comparable, right? You can't just do one kind of sampling over here and one kind of sampling over here and then compare them. No, you can't. You have to have very similar kind of sampling. Do you get my point?
I know, I get your point, sir. But if we do similar kinds of sampling in dissimilar habitats, wouldn't that lead to a bias of sorts? Isn't it comparatively better to do different kinds of sampling than find a way to
Okay.
proportionately
Okay,
calculate
okay,
them?
okay. So then let's just say okay, these are not grasslands and these are not grasslands and forest. Grassland and forest because I wanted to make sure that you get the hang of the vegetation structure, the whole like more structure in forest. So bird sampling is a little more difficult over there. The detection of birds is difficult. So I just wanted to get you to get a hang of it. Okay, so let's say there's a monoculture plantation and there's a forest, both of them wooded areas. Now tell me, they might have similar kinds of sampling, right? Forest density of species is greater. Yeah, I mean it's possible. More niches, more density. I mean more density of species. What do you mean by density of species? Are you talking about the number of species? What is density of species? Or abundance of species of each species, individual.
I think she means a concentration of more number of species in a
So
smaller
basically,
area.
species richness is higher in forest. Okay. Yeah, I don't think anyone calls it density of species. Anyways, so basically, what you have to do is sample more in the forest area and sample less in the monoculture area technically, or if you're just taking the grassland and the forest, sample more in the forest area and sample less in the grassland area. You have to have similar sampling. If you have to compare them, you have to have similar sampling method, otherwise it doesn't make sense to compare them. So then when you're doing stratified, you try and make your effort, like sampling efforts also, like account for the sampling efforts also. So probably when you have a stratified sampling in that sense, if you're randomly putting plots, say the area is 50-50, like 50% over here, 50% over here. If you're randomly putting your 1,000 plots, then it will have 500 over here, 500 over here. But you're doing 500 plots in grassland, which would give a species area curve and plateau much earlier than 500 plots in forest, which might actually require a little more. Say the forest is densely, has has a very high species richness, then it will still require a lot more to cover the for the species area curve to plateau. So then probably what you should do is put more efforts in the forest and stratify in that sense. So that's why the stratified sampling, that's just one example. Stratified sampling could be used in any other context where you have to put more efforts in one and than the other because of the, the sampling differences based on certain characteristics of the different two different kinds of strata. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Anyways, the next question.
So, sir, sorry. It can be either A or C, no, sir. Like, even if you choose a plot for out of our intuition, also it's also technically random only, no, sir.
No. Random means something over. In a study design, random has a particular meaning. It's not what we generally use the word for in our general life, in our daily life.
Okay, sir.
Right? So random number generator is like a thing that people have been using. So you basically number each plot and then randomly select through a computer program, like we do. We do in QGIS and R. Yes, Mark, you were saying something.
It's unbiased, right?
It is unbiased. Yeah, it is technically unbiased. Yeah. Random has a different meaning, Lakshmi. That's all I'm saying. Random when we use
I
an
understood, sir.
when we use an
I understood, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that point.
Yeah. Anyways. No, Harini, random is every nth plot. Then what is systematic sampling? Harini, do you want to answer? What do you understand by systematic sampling? Okay, I thought every nth plot is more systematic than random, but yeah. Okay, I think you guys should Wikipedia or Google up the systematic sampling. I'll leave it up to you to understand what systematic sampling is. But yeah, let me see what the answer is. It is haphazard and convenient sampling.
Is systematic sampling when you actually kind of say, I think the example that Dr. Suhel gave was, supposing you have 20 trees that with nests. So then you kind of number them and then you sample based on those 20 you draw, kind of some sample from each.
That is random.
Units or something like that. I probably didn't get it entirely right.
But that is random sampling, Rosemary.
Okay.
Yeah, that is random sampling where the drawing of these chits, random number generator, or I don't know, the lottery, the lucky draw thing, all of them are randomly selecting this thing. That's random sampling.
Okay.
In systematic, what you would do is you have an area, and you place your points equidistant to each other. So it will be a grid, basically, but the center of each corner of the grid cell, I mean, that would be a sample. I mean, that would be where you'll start sampling. So then it is not as random, but it looks like a looks like a grid cell. I hope you get it. I mean, I don't have a physical. Okay.
Sir, could you repeat just what you said
All right.
for a second?
Yeah. So basically, you can see this, right? Where is it? So this is a piece of land. How I would systematically do is I will, yeah. So, okay. So do you see this thing? Yeah, I hope you see it. So where each plot is equidistant from each other, and yeah, so that is more systematic sampling. This isn't random sampling. Random sampling is basically where the same plot, I will grid, then number it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. I mean, so something like this. The second diagram, I'll grid it, then number it, then there would be some 30, 35 grid cells, and out of that, either I make 35 chits and pick, I don't know, some 10 of them, and that would be my random sampling. I hope you get the, I mean, it's not a very big difference, but it is slightly different. So I hope you got that part.
Sir, the example you gave for systemic sampling, it doesn't seem too different from the previous question. I kind of got confused.
So previous question is what the second diagram was. Where is it? Yeah. So previous question is what the second diagram is, where you have gridded the entire region into a particular grid cell size, and then out of, so you'll have some 230 or whatever number of grid cells, and then you either, so you number them and you pick from a random number generator numbers like 1, 6, 8, 9, 10, whatever, and then those are the grid cells that you go and sample. So that is a random sampling. So that's the first question, is that way. Systematic sampling is basically you are putting a grid, and the center of each grid is where you will definitely go and sample. So each of your survey points of grid cells would be equidistant from each other, and they look very nice to say.
So basically, in systemic sampling, the grids are carefully constructed, whereas in the second one, the grids are just made out of convenience.
No. Okay.
So maybe I don't know if we are going out of scope, but maybe if you can just briefly kind of touch upon where you would use both these types. I mean, where would one be more favorable? Is it a smaller area where systematic sampling would be better, or would be more feasible?
No, so I can't even say ki there is a particular, because for I was looking at birds, and we were looking at the whole landscape of Nilgiris and Palni Anamalai Hills, and there we gridded the entire area into 1 hectare cell, so 100 meter by 100 meter, and we got somewhere around 150,000 grid cells in all. And then we picked like 0.5% of those grid cells, randomly generated by randomly generated numbers, and we got somewhere around let's say not 0.5, 1% of grid cells we picked out of them, and we got some 1500 grid cells that we have to sample. So that's random sampling. But the same study, I mean, not the same study, but that was for for an occupancy survey. So that's like also the kind of survey that you're doing. So that was for the occupancy survey. In the same landscape, there was another scientist who was also my collaborator. She was looking at the vegetation plots, and what she did was, in a forest patch, she placed these grid cells in a very equidistant kind of a system, like a systematic, it's called systematic sampling, that's why. So, and then she sampled in those points. So they didn't look like they were randomly cluttered on the forest. They looked like they were equidistant to each other. So it depends on a lot of situations. Like for occupancy sampling, I think this random sampling would work much better. But for something else, the systematic sampling would, yeah. So and I mean, there are a lot of other things. I mean, so that's why I can't explain, because there are a lot of other things that you can also do with random sampling. You can make the number generator in such a way that none of the edge plots are taken. So all the plots would be slightly away from the edge, and you can also put in numbers so that from the grid cells, you can have like a minimum distance between each of the plots, like a minimum distance. So you can say that each plot should be at least 100 meters away from each other. So these things you can do in random sampling, but you can't do in systematic sampling, where the distances has to be equal. And yeah, some of the edge plots would actually be, I mean, some of the grid cells would fall in the edge plots that you can't help, and you have to take it. So it all depends on your what kind of survey you are doing. Suppose you don't want to do an edge survey, like edges have a different kind of species. So but all you want to do is survey only in the core of the jungle or forest or whatever forest patch. So then probably random sampling is much better for you and not systematic sampling. I mean, that's just one way of saying it. I hope you got it.
Sir, so the grids are more uneven in random
No,
sampling?
in random sampling, it might look uneven, but it isn't uneven. I mean, yeah. So, how do I? Yeah.
Basically, it's not been done with any rules in mind. So systematic would be like supposing you're sampling every alternate grid. So you have a rule in mind and you're following that. There's a regularity
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
what the sampling is.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a 1 kilometer square plot and you sample every 100-meter grid.
Yeah.
Every alternate 100 meters. So there's
But
a
I'm not
system
talking about the
you-
transect that you walk. I'm talking about straight lines. That would be systematic. If you're going by a transect that people usually walk, then it's biased, because there was already a transect lying over there, and transects have a different ecosystem around than the core. So I hope you get the minor difference here. Yeah. Anyways, I think you can study on it or read on it a little more, and you'll understand. But yeah, the next question. So, Ruzbe, you're asking, wouldn't this depend on the objective of the study sampling? We are studying the differences between individual bird calls. So that's the objective.
Individual birds or individual calls.
Bird
So
calls.
what I mean is,
Individual bird calls of individual bird, not the other way.
okay.
Yeah.
So we're studying the differences between calls and not the birds that
We are studying the difference between the birds, not the calls.
each.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So there has to be multiple recordings of almost the same song, no sir? Like out of that 2,000 songs you have collected, of that 100 birds, there are high chances of repetitive recording also, no sir?
Yeah. What about? Yeah.
So
But it's sir, it says that from
has to be
over
pseudo
100
replicates.
birds, right, sir? So there
Yeah.
are like 100 different birds that it's collected from.
Yeah.
So we can, so if we under the assumption that it's done evenly, you could say that's roughly 20 songs from each bird.
Yeah. Okay.
20
Yeah.
recordings.
Yeah.
So since it's a scientific study, I would say it is something like that.
Yeah.
as there are chances of both replicates as well as different calls, it has to be, I feel that it has to be pseudo replicates. Like both the samples which have come can be equal or cannot be equal also, like same or no. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of repetitive calls as well as new calls. Like
Lakshmi, I have to ask you, what do you understand from pseudo replicates?
The samples which we draw shouldn't be similar.
No, I don't think that is what pseudo replicate is. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. You're saying that calls that sound similar or calls that
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
they are called pseudo. No, they are not pseudo replicates.
It means basing your information from sampling upon the same subject.
Yeah. So basically,
I think, if I may, I think Dr. Suhel mentioned it as when the replicates are probably not as distinct as they would be if they were actually drawn from the on the objective of the study. So if you have, it need not be from the same subject, but even if you have collected samples from a similar kind of maybe group, so that the samples happen to be less distinct than they would be if they were drawn equally from the entire study area.
yeah. So Harini, you're saying samples are correlated in pseudo replicates? Yes, somehow, yeah, because yeah. So basically, let's just go to the answer and yeah. So it is both B and C. So I mean, if you say that I collected 2,000 songs from over 100 birds, but your study was you are looking at the differences between bird calls of individual birds. Sorry for the typo over there, but bird calls of individual birds. Then your 2,000 songs are all pseudo replicates, and like you have, but what you have is 2,000 calls of 100 bird samples. So you have 100 replicates, and I mean, if like Govind says, it could be 20 calls per bird. It doesn't matter, but yeah, something like that. But yeah, you have collected 100 replicates because you have sampled 100 birds, because your study was basically differences between the calls of individual birds. So both B and C are true in this case.
So how can we say B is true again?
Because 2000 is pseudo replicate. I mean, they are not your replicates. They are not your sample. That 2000 is not your sample size. Your sample size is basically 100 over here. I hope you get it.
So, but we can't say that like all. I think option B implies that all 2000 are pseudo replicates, but that's not true, right? So,
yeah, but
I mean, there are definitely pseudo replicates since each individual bird or at least a few individual birds have been sampled a lot more than once. More than once or a couple of times. at least, but the sample size is still large, and we've compared a lot of them. So an option B implies that all 2000 or most of the 2000 are just from one
No, no,
organism.
no, no. That is not what pseudo replicate is. Pseudo replicate would mean that you say that all 2000 would be separately sampled. I mean, separately analyzed. Like 2000, like you say that you have collected 2000 samples, and you would each would. So suppose when you're doing your analysis, what you do is you looked at the minimum frequency, maximum frequency, bandwidth, all these things you look at for each song. Okay, and then each song would have these particular variables. A song one would have minimum frequency, maximum frequency, bandwidth, I don't know, power, amplitude, all of these things. Song B has this, song C has this. So you have like 2000 songs like that, and 2000 2000 like 2000 into whatever 5 variables that you have. So but if you try and study the difference between each song, then that is 2000 pseudo replicates. But your question was, you're trying to study difference between calls of individual birds. So then you will have a mean of this bird, mean of this bird, mean of this bird, and then you try and study the difference between each bird. That's why it has 100 samples and not 2000 samples. So that's all I'm trying to say over here. Govind, yes, I understand when Suhel said that if you're doing it for one, I think he said something about one plot or one forest patch or something. That is pseudo replicate, but basically what he meant was you have one as the sample size, you don't have 100 as the sample size, because just because you collected 100 plots in one patch of forest doesn't mean your sample size is 100. Your sample size is only one, because you're looking at whatever that the observe. I mean the what is it? The objective of the study over there was.
Maybe I'm getting this wrong, but what I remember, he said if you have one peacock and you want to determine the length of the tail, and you measure the same individual's tail length or the trail 10 times,
Yeah.
then those are pseudo replicates.
Yes.
So what I wanted to say for this question is, the very first call of each individual is the replicate.
Yeah.
And all the subsequent calls are the pseudo replicates.
Yes.
This is what I meant, sir, actually.
But in such a case, can we say that there are 2000 pseudo replicates? I mean,
so what do you want to call them? 2000 minus 100 pseudo replicates, like that? 1900 pseudo replicates. If we are collecting 20 calls per bird, in that case. I'm asking. Would that be right?
I would say something like 19 pseudo replicates per bird.
Per bird. Okay. Pseudo because it is not a specific number of calls per bird.
Yes, sir. I mean, the first call recorded from a bird is the replicate, the rest are pseudo replicates. Assuming it was all done evenly, 20 per bird, that would be 19 pseudo replicates per bird, right, sir?
Okay. Yeah, that would mean 1900 pseudo replicates.
Say the intention is to capture the entire vocabulary of the individual, then you have to take the average of all the calls taken for that individual, and then that is your replicate. And then all of those samples that you collected were your pseudo replicates. Correct?
No.
But sir, also, how can we say that just the first call alone is enough to be a replicate? I mean,
exactly. I mean,
birds can make different kinds of calls too. We must assess that we must take more than at least one replicate per bird. Isn't that also? I mean, it's not the same as measuring a peacock's tail length, right, sir?
But all I wanted to state from this question is, because you're collecting 2,000 samples doesn't mean that you have 2,000 samples. What you have is 100 samples, 20 songs per sample. That's all. Are we clear over there?
Yes, sir, very clear there.
Clear.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Okay, I would have to ask Ruzbe, why do you think it's A and not D? I don't know the reason, that's all.
No, because in any case, if you have, why should the samples collected after 60 be redundant? I just didn't get that. Whereas the first one made sense to me.
Okay. But why do other people think it's D and not not A?
The graph tapers off, sir, after 60.
Huh.
So it's like we have hit the, it's as if we have sampled almost all the possible way.
Yeah.
That's what I feel, sir. Like once the graph tapers and stays same similar,
Huh.
it means that we have hit the end point or we have hit the highest possible way of sampling it.
Okay.
And
so
there is
can
nothing more to add to value.
Yeah, Lakshmi is right in some ways, but can somebody pick out that exact term that I'm looking for? Even Suhel has used that. Nobody?
Sorry, sir, I couldn't actually go through Suhel sir's because of time constraints. I have yet to go through his.
No,
lectures.
you're right there. We have hit some point, but what is that point? I mean, the term is something that I'm looking for. We have come to, I mean, at 60 we have reached something. Yeah, that is something that term is. Something.
Mean sample coefficient?
No, nothing like that. Nothing as fancy as that, but just.
Is it simply something like plateau or flatten or something?
No, diminishing returns. I don't even know what it means, Mayala. No. Is it something financial? I'm not very sure. No. So okay. So what Suhel was talking about is something called variability. The difference within the population, within the populations, basically. Some people could be tall, some people could be short, but within the population there's like a high variation. So that's after 60 we have covered that variation. I mean, we after 60, even if we add a little more, there is not much variability that we are covering. Um, so
Sir,
yeah, go in.
just to be sure, sir, by confidence intervals of mean, you mean the variability?
No, confidence interval is between. So basically, different people have a different definition. For me to understand, I pick some definition in my head. But if there are other professors like Vishu Guttal who explains it in a different way. But what I understand from confidence interval is, it's the interval between which my mean lies. Okay, so the confidence interval is basically the highest that you can see is 0.2, almost 0.2. Okay, just for the sake of ease over here, I'll call it 2. So 2 is the confidence interval right now over here, and the highest confidence interval. That means that if my confidence interval is 2, then that could range between 16 and 18. So the mean could be 16.5, 16.6, or 17.8, something like that. So that's my confidence interval, 16 to 18. Or if you say 5 to 7, that could mean that 5.1 to 6.9. Anywhere there could be a mean sitting there. So if I reduce it to okay, do you get okay? I've used, I mean, that range that I've used is quite small, so it's gonna be very difficult to explain. Okay, so if we use 0.2 as the confidence interval, that would mean that it is 18.6 to 18.8 is the range in which I find my mean. But if the confidence interval is 0.1, that would mean that it would be between 18.6 to 18.7. And if the confidence interval is 0.05, that would mean the mean is between 18.6 to 18.65. So basically what you're doing is the location of your mean is getting narrower and narrower, like the range in which your mean can sit. That's all. I hope you got it.
So, to put it simply in a nutshell, it's the size of the range.
It is the range. It is the range between which you find your mean.
And the higher the range, the less the variability. But
It's high. Yeah.
beyond a certain point, the size of the range becomes redundant.
Yeah.
Right,
If your sample size increases, so variability you can't help it. Some populations would have high variability, and some populations would have low variability. That you can't help. That depends on what the system that you're studying. So, but what you can do is, based on the variability, you can increase or decrease your sample size so that you reach a point where any more increase in the sample size is not gonna better your confidence interval. I hope you got it. So basically, confidence, when would you say that confidence interval is 0? When would you say that?
When the
Basically, it would be 0 when you have sampled everything, like the entire population. Then if you say, oh, the mean of my this thing is whatever ABC, with 0 confidence interval, because I've sampled everything, I have not left out any individual. So that's when your confidence interval is 0. But that is not possible, especially when we are sampling. We are sampling because we cannot do a census of each and every individual. Do you get my point? Was I audible for the last 2-3 minutes? Hello?
For the very last bit, you weren't. Much less than even a minute.
Yes, sir. Yeah, not as much as a minute, but you were stuck for a couple of seconds there.
Okay. So what I wanted to say was confidence interval would be 0 if you have census. I mean, basically it's called census, where you go to every house or every individual and ask their details or whatever. So that is census. But we are not doing the census, especially not for birds or animals or forest or grasslands or whatever. You cannot. I mean, that's not physically possible. So what you do is you sample. You pick some out of the population, and then you measure whatever the variable, the trait that you're measuring. So there the problem with that is you do get a mean, but the mean comes with a range, the confidence interval. So your mean lies in this particular range. The mean comes with a standard deviation basically. So that confidence interval is, the mean lies between this range. And each population would have the variability, and some population would have high variability. That would mean that you'll have to sample a lot more than the usual to get like the minimum confidence interval possible. So that's the only difference. I hope I hope some people are getting a little bit of what I'm trying to say. Are people still, can people hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sure, sir.
Did I did I make sense? Did I try and
Yeah, you made sense, sir.
I
So
got the
we have
gist
to,
of what you were
yeah,
saying,
got
sir.
the gist of it. We need to study more.
okay, good, get it, great. That's all I want.
It's in the assignment, sir, this question.
Oh no. Hey, but
It is.
Yes, sir.
but
Yes,
assignment
sir.
last date was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. Harini, you were asking. Sorry, I missed that optimal sample size. There are a lot of people said something. What's an optimal sample size? Sample size is equal to population. No, sample size is not equal to population. If your population is 1,000.
No, that answer was for your particular question when you asked when will we have the correct mean.
Acha, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you made sense then. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Oh no, this is like a simple question, so I'll just go ahead with it. You can't do much for this question. I'll go to the next question. So the answer was D, 40%. This is also one of those general knowledge kind of a question. I don't know if it's any. All right. So basically, in China, it's called the Manchurian steppe, and in Africa, it's called the veldt. So answer is A.
Sir, isn't the savannah and also in Africa? Like,
Yeah, savanna is also Africa, but the southern Africa has veldt and not savannas. Savannas are northern Africa, is what I understand.
It wasn't mentioned also that it was south, southern or northern or something. It was in general, right?
No, but if you see the map that Suresh was showing, the Amos don't go to North Africa; they go to South Africa. Not
Okay,
South
sir.
Africa, the country, the southern Africa. Saptarshi Falcons fly to southern Africa. Amur Falcons, yes, it was there in Suresh's talk. And Saptarshi, can you please show the previous slide, the percentage of bird migration slide? Why? It's just 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. Is there something you want to check, Saptarshi?
Sir, doesn't migration have a higher risk of mortality, sir, than the dispersal? Because dispersal can be over a short distance, a nearby distance, but migration is long. If it is long distance, then there are chances of death more higher.
You answered the question, Lakshmi. Did
Yet
you?
to, sir, I just wanted to get the clarity, sir. That's all.
Very smart.
No, sir, I was not looking for answers, sir. I was just.
No. Answer and then we'll discuss.
Sir, does this when risk of mortality is taken into account, then do we include anthropogenic dangers or the natural dangers?
Let's not take anthropogenic for now. We'll take only the natural ones.
No, I mean the risks involved. Does it include human-related risks or the risks that the birds would have naturally faced?
Naturally faced.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
B and C are a bit tricky parts, sir. I have answered. That's why I'm saying.
Okay.
B and D are a bit of a tricky part for me, sir.
Okay. I'll click the answer. B is may not use intervening habitats. E is behavioral adaptation. F is along the same path. 2A starts in natal. C is risk of mortality is very high, and D is multidirectional. Yeah.
That's what, sir. The C part is
A
what.
was the best.
Risk of mortality is very high in migration, also, rather than
Well,
dispersal.
Yeah, sir, I chose. I think C would apply to migration if it includes anthropogenic factors, since all the issues we've introduced. But in naturally, like natural occurring risk, I would say dispersal has greater risk, since
How so?
dispersal is it's a completely new environment for the bird, and it does something on its own, whereas migration tends to be in flocks or in groups, and it's usually in a well trodden path.
Still, sir, when it comes in when migration happens, it happens in a large number. So, whatever be it bird or animal or any kind of migration is a time when there is a plenty of food for the predators, no, sir. So it's I'm just confused.
I mean, there haven't been much study on the fatalities in dispersal, but in India at least. But in other countries where they have looked at the dispersal in birds in the fatalities in the during dispersal, it's way higher than migration.
Well,
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I mean,
and as
for this
and
could be for
such
various reasons and not intuitive as we understand. But yeah, go ahead.
isn't dispersal have higher natural risks since it involves actually choosing a particular area to set up shop in,
Yeah,
or a, which is completely unknown to the bird,
yeah,
and migration following a
the same
path
path.
that
Yeah.
of the least risk, right, sir?
Yeah, and the migration always has a leader, like a previous migrant who's already been to those places. Not always, but mostly have those kinds of like individuals that have actually done the same thing. So there is a there's an experience involved in migration, which is not so in the dispersal, where the individual there's just an individual that goes and yeah, has to set up a new nest or a breeding ground or something like that. So yeah.
And sir, I have one question related to migration. Like as Lakshmi said, predators would do follow migrants in hopes of food. I've seen that examples many times in mammal migrations, like say in the Masai Mara migrations in Tanzania, in Africa, of wildebeests and zebras, that lions and leopards and cheetahs and other hunters often follow the herds, and crocodiles often get ready in when they plan to cross the river, sir. I've seen it many times on many documentaries.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that crocodiles are following the
Well,
wildebeest.
they don't follow, but they reach the stretch of the river that
They actually cross. Yeah.
yeah, yes, sir. But is there any like examples of birds of that happening in birds? Are there any predators that actively follow or wait for migration of birds? Could you give any examples?
I am not sure. I haven't heard anything of that sort. No, I haven't heard. But
I mean,
that will involve a lot of things like lions following. I mean, obviously they're not following wildebeest for the entire. Then actually they're just migrating with them. No, that's not happening. That's not what is happening.
yeah,
Like
of course, they're not following the herds 24/7.
yeah,
When the herds cross a certain area, the lions would be waiting in the during a specific time and
something
place.
like
So,
that. Yeah. But
does that happen
in
in?
birds, no, no. I'm not sure. I mean, from the limited papers that I have read, I have never heard something of that sort.
I've seen something similar in a documentary once. I think well, when albatross chicks start fledging, tiger sharks come to the area and wait for inexperienced chicks to fall into the water and then feed upon them. I think that might be one example, but I don't know if I was hoping for another one, or one which happens at a larger scale.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. So probably you might have to read up a bit more on that and get back to us. So Saptarshi is asking, is dispersal a kind of nomadic behavior or is it different from nomads? Yes, Saptarshi, it's different from nomads because um, I mean, if you heard last starts in natal, can you explain? Please explain this option. Is it natal homing? Yeah. So in the last discussion session with Umesh and Moshmi, if you were there, you might have heard him talk that females are the one dispersing from the natal territory and not the males, particularly in birds. In mammals, it's the opposite. It's the males that disperse and not the females. Even
That,
yeah. Uh,
but didn't he also say that it's true for Amazonian birds?
No, so there's a very popular study done on Florida scrub jay, and they found out that Florida scrub jay is not in Amazon; it's in America. It's a temperate bird. So, I mean the scientists' names are I forgot their names. Wolfenden and Fitzpatrick. Yeah, If you search them, they have this very nice book which was published somewhere in the 60s or 70s, and they have done like a very hardcore field ecology with the techniques available at that time. And yeah, I mean, you should get a hold of that book and see what all experiments they have done with. It was all within their field station, field site, and they have done like several. So Florida scrub jay are like these cooperative breeders as well. So they have done a lot of study on that, like, and one of them is the dispersal, and they have also looked at the dispersal fatality in the females. So that is also very high in that.
So dispersal occurs more frequently and in larger ranges in females than in males.
So dispersal happens each time. Each time a bird fledges, and the parents can actually push them out. Like they are like, we're no longer feeding you, and you have to get out of the territory. I mean, that's like a very anthropomorphic way of saying it, but that's what it is. So the birds are out of the parents' territory, and then they are all on their own trying to look for a suitable area to breed and settle down or whatever. So yeah, it like somebody said, mortality is an absolute number, may be high in migration, but as a proportion of a population it will likely be higher in dispersal. Even as a number also, it might be even as an absolute number, Mehala, it might be really high dispersal, that fatality dispersal. The only thing is nobody has actually done a study or a comparison in that sense, but yeah, or if there is, then probably it's more in the temperate areas rather than in the tropical zones. In this question, there's an option called starts in natal territory. Natal territory is where the bird was born, basically. Bird was born and fed by parents, probably, if it's not a altricial chick. If it's an altricial chick, sorry.
So then the breeding grounds are called as natal territories.
Breeding grounds are not natal territory. Breeding grounds are where the birds breed. Natal territory. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
In some cases, right, sir?
Yeah, some cases.
The natal territories are the nesting sites.
Yeah. Migration route starts from natal territories. Harini says that yes, for some birds, not for all birds. Migration for newborns is from the breeding territory, cannot be called natal territory. But migration for newborns is from breeding. Yes, it is called natal territory, but that was like a general. I mean, the question was for generalized, whatever. Could you give the title of the book or the name of the authors? The authors is Wolfendan and Fitzpatrick. It's about.
In relation to Florida scrub jays, I also asked a question in yesterday's lecture. Well, does that mean cooperative breeding is more common in males than in females? Since females disperse more and larger ranges, males are more likely to stay and cooperatively breed?
Possibly in birds, at least.
Yeah, in birds.
Yeah, but it depends on the system that you're studying, right? Like in meerkats, probably it's the opposite. Who knows? Yeah, it is the opposite. It's a female. In meerkats, it's the females that stay back and cooperatively breed.
Actually, I think it's. I'm not sure about meerkats, sir. In most mammals, it's the males that disperse, but I think meerkats are an exception. Not sure though.
Meerkats, I think the cooperatively breeding ones are females. Even in lions, they're the female. It's not called cooperative breeding in lion, but yeah, because but in wolves, I think both of them are there.
Well, in most mammals, generally males are the ones that disperse, but the females stay
back, yeah. In elephants also, it's the females that stay back.
But the exception is, there are a few exceptions like African wild dogs. I think in such a case it's the opposite, sir. African wild dogs.
That's the thing. There are some generalization that we can make about biology, ecology, but it doesn't fit everything. Anyways.
So just to make something clear, the females disperse more than males in birds in general, or not, or just New World birds, sir? Birds in the New World.
See, that's what Umesh was trying to explain it to. Nobody has studied that in tropical, at least in India.
So it's only been studied in Amazonian birds and New World birds.
In Amazonian birds and in Florida scrub jay, and if it's something that I am sure it must have been studied in European birds as well, or Eurasian birds as well. At least not in India. Probably you can check that up, and yeah, I think it would be a nice thing to actually look into. But, yeah. The problem is most of the birds that, yeah, they are the male and females look very similar, so it's not very easy to. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure. Like I am as, I mean, I just knew like Florida scrub jay has this system, which Umesh missed out on. But other than that, I don't know much.
Well, actually, the Florida scrub jay example you gave, it's the source of my question, sir. It came up in a previous discussion session like this.
Huh.
The question was about Florida scrub jays, actually.
Sorry, what? Again? Say that again? Oh,
Uh,
this is
the,
the book.
we had a question in a previous problem-solving session about Florida scrub jays, and this is the source of the question. Source of the question, sir. My question.
Uh, so, I mean, yeah, it was about that particular species. I can't generalize it for the entire. But what? So even our professor once told us that male dispersal is very common in mammals and female dispersal is very common in birds. But beyond that, she didn't say much. And it's a generalization that can be taken into that can be uh, used as a hypothesis for a lot of other species, but then a lot has not been proved in India, is all I can say. Is that okay, Govind?
Yes, sir. It's only been proved in
Those particular species, yes. Dispersal happens before reaching breeding age. Yes, yes. Yeah, they are usually the after the fledglings grow up a bit and can fly and move out of the territory. That's when the dispersal, most dispersal happens, or at least that is what is called dispersal. Vedang says, so we can consider that mostly pre-breeding the females move further and post-breeding age males move further than post-breeding age. What do you mean post-breeding age? Is there a post-breeding age? They breed throughout their life, right? That's all. That's all they do.
To breed, I'm saying.
Sorry.
So no, I'm talking about the age of maturity for breeding. When that is attained, I suppose the males will move further, and before that, at dispersal, the females will be moving apart further. Right?
No, males stay back in the natal territories mostly. That's what I understand.
No, in the previous question in number 8, we had discussed that. I mean, I forgot what it was, but wasn't it about this that the male arrives at the territory sooner, right? So yeah, so that is after the breeding ages.
Okay.
I mean,
No, that's for particularly migratory birds. Yes, but I think they both do the same kind of migration, like similar distances, just that the females stay back a little more, and males, yeah, because they have rivals to fight against in the new place that they're going before they set up their breeding, whatever the nest and all.
So it's early. So it's early bird gets this part, right, sir?
Yes, something of that sort. Anyways, think the answer was B. Everyone got it. Suppose A and B both seem not true to me. Rusbe, you're talking about this question, right? 9th question.
Yes, I wasn't sure why A would not be true.
But ish, I mean,
not be true.
Not be true. Sorry. You weren't sure if A is true. No, I didn't understand.
No, A is also untrue according to me.
Oh, you're saying
could be untrue.
Okay.
Isn't A natural selection?
Yes, that's what I understand, and that's what Suresh also told. And yeah, it's not my statement.
No, probably I missed that.
I'm clarifying. It's not my statement. It's what something Suresh has already.
I'll listen to the video again.
Yeah. So, but yeah, A seems to be more probable, is what I understand. B, though, definitely, yeah, untrue. So Harini is saying dispersal is about the offspring and not the parents from the natal territories. Right? Yes, Harini. Yes, it's the offsprings that have become adults recently. Yes, Harini. It's not a generalization. I can't talk about all the tropical birds, or I can't talk about Indian birds in particular. But according to Umesh, it's definitely happening in Amazonian birds, and according to Florida Scrub Jay, that book, it's definitely happening in Florida Scrub Jays. And some Eurasian birds, I haven't read or I don't know much about the Eurasian birds and the dispersal, but I'm pretty sure that the same thing happening over there as well. Okay. People have said C, D, A, B, B, C, B. Can't comment much on it. So.
Usually nocturnal sugurne is caused by melatonin, sir, but I don't know about the diurnal thing. Okay.
This is very technical for me. I can't comment on this much more. Yeah. I mean, this is that particular experiment after which Jobin Varughese was. Yeah. Yeah, this was quite simple.
In that last question, I've always seen that if there is a hormone whose role you don't understand, then probably that is the one. Because prolactin generally is in human beings and mammals, it stimulates the production of milk.
Okay.
What could its purpose be in birds? There is no production of milk, so that has to be the answer rather than anything else.
Yeah,
It has no other role otherwise.
Okay.
You assume that the role that it is talking about is what it must be playing.
Possibly, but there are a lot of people working on. I mean, we recently went to a conference and there was like 50% of the people were studying on this. I mean, there was this whole institute from where some 10 to 12 researchers were studying only this light and Jobin Varughese and yeah, I mean the whole migration in birds and what happens in their brain. So yeah, there's a whole.
Because I think migratory studies have moved to what is happening in the endocrine system now. There has to be some connection between the endocrine system has to play a major role in stimulating and guiding migration now.
But
From what I have used to talking to a few scientists that now they
yeah,
want to
but
know more about how the endocrine and nervous system are working together to.
yeah, but most of them were doing studies on obviously captive birds, but they were like cutting the head out and then yeah, they had like these tiny buttons they were pushing in the inside the bird brain and seeing which gets activated and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it was mostly this nervous system and yeah, those system, but yeah, you could be right. I'm not sure.
So could you show the previous slide for a second? What were the options?
They didn't mean anything. So respirometer is something which I think Anusha might have mentioned. They study these birds. They give them the doubly labeled water and they use a respirometer to check the metabolism and stuff like that. So. Yes, Vidang, I'm really sorry if this thing, but probably melanin and melatonin and thyroid hormones are, but yeah, I frankly don't study it, so yeah. If you guys are really interested, probably you could dig deeper and see what is happening, but yeah, this is from what Suresh was talking about. Okay, everyone's answer seems to be the same.
This was an assignment also, sir.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was there, sir.
No, I'm just saying. Oh no, I didn't know.
I gave the assignment in the last hour, sir, so I remember it.
Yeah, good that they have a session after the assignment is submitted, because otherwise a lot of answers would be just given by us.
I use the text transcripts to answer, sir.
Oh. Yeah. Wait.
I answered the assignments on my own basis. I couldn't watch the videos because of tight schedule at home.
Wait, you don't do that? You don't watch the video at 2 times speed and all?
No, sir. Actually, I didn't have the time to even take the mobile.
Sir, neither did I, sir. I have had a lot of college work, so I'm still on week 5 actually. I simply use the text transcripts to answer, and I also look through the last year's assignments.
Yeah.
In fact, there are a lot of similarities with last year's assignments, at least on some level. So if you can learn how to dissect the question, you can answer, sir.
Thank God I sailed through the assignment because of the number of webinars I have attended, sir. But this time for assignment 6, I couldn't even touch the module. Today I finished 2 videos of it, sir.
So people are answering? Okay. Yeah.
So what's the difference between B and C, sir? I feel B was just a random word or something.
There are more coming ahead.
Because geolocators and geologgers both are almost.
I mean, there are more questions based on this afterwards, so I won't like to explain right now. Anyway, we'll see the answer here is geolocators. They basically log the amount of light or luminescence that falls on this thing, and based on that they can figure out where the position of the bird is. But yeah, geologgers, sorry, this question got anyways.
Do these geolocators have small solar panels?
Something of that sort. I have not seen it in my hand. I have seen only the geologgers. I've not even seen GSM, that retriever.
Are there any researchers in India who are geotagging birds?
Yes. Umesh is doing that. And who asked this? Mark, did you ask?
IISc.
Umesh from IISc, yes. He's tagging birds. He's no longer tagging. He was tagging birds in Eagle Nest. Then there is one more question coming up based on that. So I wouldn't want to say the name of that person. So, and then
And they get the tags from it's imported, or
Yes,
like,
we
are
don't have.
they?
Yeah, we don't have it in India. We don't. They are not produced in India. Okay, everyone's answering D, but what I asked was why is it useful more for smaller birds? But yeah, anyways, the answer is A, because geolocators are the lightest things that are available for tracking birds, and like lighter than the geologgers and the GSM retrievers. And that's why for very small birds, people generally use very small birds that like migrate long distances. People generally use geolocators and not something else. So they are the lightest that is available on market in market right now.
So in this question, the smaller birds is important. I mean,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
do we know that what they are emphasizing on in the question, sir?
It's
Like
written.
here, the emphasis was on smaller birds. Only after you said, I got that emphasis
Yeah,
also.
but I didn't say track birds. I said
So because the
track.
rule is that the tag must be less than 3% of the bird's body weight,
It's usually
Yeah.
5%,
and the smallest birds weigh only 20 grams, 30 grams. So
even less for some.
even less
Oh,
than that. So
okay. Okay.
2% would be 30 grams, 20 grams would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So do those smaller birds actually migrate?
Yes, a lot of small birds
Was
migrate.
a tiger flycatcher, red
Yes,
breasted flycatcher. All these are passerines and small
wagtails,
birds, warblers.
wobblers. Yeah, the leaf wobblers. The green and the greenish.
So they're like 30 grams or
No, no,
so.
they are much below than that. So a sholakili weighs, I mean, I can only tell the birds that I've caught. The sholakili weighs somewhere around 20 gram, 20 to 21 gram. Laughing thrushes, which are like slightly bigger, they weigh around 50. But lighter than that, the black and orange flycatcher weigh around somewhere, like some of the smallest one weigh around 9 or 10 grams.
Wobblers must be less than 5 grams.
Yeah, wobblers must be much less than that, yes. Or at least 8 to 9, like the heavier wobblers. Yes, Akshay. Do you? No, Abhay, sorry.
Hello, sir.
Huh. Tell me.
इन जो तीनों मेजर क्या डिफरेंस है तो जीएसएम जीपीएस ट्रांसमीटर जियो लॉगर और जियो डिस्क्रिप्टर
Abhay, I can't hear you properly. Can you speak a little louder?
तो ये जो तीनों ऑप्शन है ना एबीसी
हाँ
इन
हाँ
तीनों में क्या डिफरेंस
हाँ, मैं
इनके बारे में
बताता हूँ,
थोड़ा
मैं
मुझे
बताता हूँ,
थोड़ा बताओ आप
बताता हूँ. एंड ऑफ द क्वेश्चन मैं बताता हूँ. Okay, the answer is both B and C. So, what was the tracking used on bar-tail godwit? I think, not sure. Locators or transmitters? I'm not sure. Huh? I'm not sure. I'm totally not sure. So GSM GPS transmitters are so they are slightly heavier. What they do is they collect data of the location, the position where they are sitting, but they also have transmitters, so they keep transmitting that information back to some other receiver. So that's GSM GPS transmitter. Then you have geologgers, which have so they log the data where they are, but it's basically GPS data, and because they need to have GPS system in it, they are slightly heavier. And the lightest is geolocator. They also log, but they log the light intensity or whatever, luminescence or lux value or whatever, and they don't log the GPS location. So that's why they are lighter. They don't have the GPS system in it, so they are lightest. And for both geologgers and geolocators, you still have to recapture the bird to extract all the information. So yeah, so a lot of tracking devices are just lost in the nature because a lot of these birds don't come back. But still, I think for our system of study, I mean, it's said that 50% of geologgers are lost because the birds are never retrieved back, so recaptured back. Harini, I'm really not sure what was used in the bar-tailed godwit. Probably you can look into the study and see what was used. How does one decide migratory birds, which one to use, given that the bird may never be found again? Yeah, I mean, how does one decide? So it depends on your study. What is the study that you're conducting? Also, and so if it's a migratory bird, then you have to take a lot of things into consideration. Your geos, whatever the tracking device would be gone for like at least a year. You won't retrieve it back till the next year, right? So the battery system should be taken into consideration. Like the battery system should last like a long time. And the other thing is, you won't be needing like a very close resolution of the data point collected. So probably all you have to do is it has to turn on and turn off each time, because to save the battery. So it turns on, and that requires a little battery, and then it turns off. So because so it has to do that either every 10 days or every month or something like that. So that's what geologgers usually do. So yeah. So based on what is the study and what system are you studying, so particularly geolocators cannot be used for very small migrations, because if the bird is just migrating within a country, within our so it's just elevationally migrating, or it's just migrating from South India to North India, then probably a geolocator cannot be very helpful, because it's just calculating the light intensity. It's not very different between South India and North India. So geolocators are the worst for that. They're best when it's migrating from the equator to the towards the pole. There you can actually measure the light differences. That's actually more measurable or more understandable. And or if you want to study, say, the dispersal of a bird or something. Oh, okay, that's the next question. Yeah. So everyone said D. Wow. Okay, let's see what the answer is. It's actually C. No. Will not be suitable. So so basically why would not be suitable? Because it would be used to track the dispersal routes of birds, and dispersal routes are not very long distance, right? There'll be like some 100 meters, 200 meters for small birds. For larger birds it would be like kilometers, but still geolocators cannot identify the difference between the light within between kilometers apart, I mean within sites that are kilometers apart. So yeah, light conditions do not vary that much. So that's why it would be the worst to be used in tracking dispersal route. Geologgers are really good, especially for small birds. GPS transmitters are also really good, but the problem with transmitters is first of all they're heavy, and second of all is like if you have seen those old documentaries where they're tracking the birds, they lug around this kind of a satellite around to see where the birds are. They do that for lions and tigers also. But the problem with that is, particularly for birds, is because if the terrain is too undulating, it's good enough to do it in central India where the terrain is not that undulating. But suppose you're doing it in Himalayas or Western Ghats, the terrain is highly undulating, vegetation is very bad. You cannot go around logging a satellite system like that. So, like a receiver like that. So. So I hope you got the gist of what I'm trying to say. But yeah, we have 10 more minutes left and 3 more questions. Mark, this is a question for you. I mean, it's for everyone, but Mark asked this question, so just saying. Okay, so the answer is harriers. So T. Ganesh has been studying harriers and using tracking devices to study the. So if you remember, we had studied about roosting a long time back, like one of the sessions, previous sessions, and which are the birds that roost. I had mentioned harriers are one of the birds. So yeah. I suppose, yeah. I'm not sure.
Do the other species actually migrate? I mean, do bustards and particles migrate?
Bustards migrate, yes. And there are other people who are studying the migratory routes of bustards. There are different bustards, actually. The Great Indian bustards, I'm not sure if anyone's tracking the migratory route of Great Indian bustards, but there are Hubara bustard, some other bustards in Spain, and there are scientists. If you get time, check this magazine called Current Conservation, and they have these archives in I think I've mentioned that before as well, but this is the magazine name, and if you look at the website, they have archives of previous years, previous months, this thing, and one of them talks about Hubara bustard and the migration and everything. So
Sir, do you mentioned Great Indian bustard? Do they migrate?
yes, they do. How much and how far, I'm not sure, but yeah. So there were times when right now they're not found in South India, but there were times when it wasn't there, and then suddenly it was there. So they had some some migration that happened, and that's the reason why it suddenly reappeared in that area when it wasn't there. So, but I'm not definitely sure. Okay. Anyways.
Sir, although it's a C the answer, but to an extent, even B can also be an answer, no, sir. The stopover sites, if they get affected in some way or the other due to anthropogenic effect or something, the birds can't get to the wintering site, no, sir, if the stopover sites are affected.
Why do you say the C is the answer?
Wintering site is very important part of migration. So actually the one half of migration is from breeding site to wintering site, no, sir.
But breeding grounds can also be affected by global change, right? It's a very...
Okay, then all... So, okay.
Anyways, I posted a link on the chat box. Nigel Collar is the scientist name who's studying bustards, and probably, yeah, they also study some kind of migration in bustards. Probably do check. Yeah, the answer is all of the above. It's a very general answer question.
Sir, do we have breeding grounds in India, sir? Like, are there any summer migratory birds here, like, who come here for breeding and then go away? Are there any examples of that in India, sir? Any bird?
Pied cuckoo.
But pied
Sorry?
cuckoo is a resident, no?
Yeah, pied cuckoo is a resident, right? Jacobin
No,
cuckoo.
but there is part of the population that migrates from southern Africa, right?
To breed here, to breed in India.
They breed in
I believe slaty-legged crake is one of those. It comes from Sri Lanka to breed.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I didn't know this.
But that's the reason I had mentioned wintering sites, because very few migratory birds breed in India. So most of the migrants that come to India are wintering migrants. They come for their non-breeding ground. During their non-breeding period is when they come to India, or their wintering sites, basically. Yeah.
True that. That's what my line of thought was, but I guess the question was about person, not just yeah, okay. Sorry. Yeah, this is the last question. I think almost all of you got the answer. It's D, Samba Lake, avian botulism. All right, that's the end of the session. Yeah, anybody else want to say something, ask something? I'll answer as much as I can.
Sir, are there any the questions pertaining to sampling? Are there any other better resources to understand those particular questions? So, like, what would you say? Because for me, the sampling part was very tricky.
I had also requested to keep a session on research methodology. So if we could keep it somewhere in some other day, it would be great.
Yeah, but Yeah, I mean, I understand, but I mean, I can't give you some new information in that sense. But I can, I can probably look for a particular a book or a paper and then get back to you in the next session. Probably, I don't have the answer right off the top of my head.
That will be great. As long as there is enough material to discuss,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can just detect how the researcher in question or the person who has published the paper has gone through the study and what has happened in that and what all has been done. So we can discuss that and what all possible other ways or alternatives that could be done in that case.
Yeah, yeah.
Could be
So
discussed.
is there a link for your paper, sir, which you used? You mentioned also that you have used some random sampling stuff.
It's going on, ongoing. We have to
Oh,
still
sorry,
publish
sir,
it.
sorry.
Yeah, we have to still publish it. Anyways, all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and yeah, thank you for staying till the end. All right. Good night then. Bye.